This week on Technado, we'll be talking about the big Citrix breach. We'll also look at some news that came out of RSA, as well as an interview with Tonia Dudley from Cofense. That's all coming up on Technado, starting right now. Hello and welcome to Technado. I'm your host, Peter Van Rysdam. After a week hiatus at RSA, I am back to restore order here. And I see that Don is still here because it's his office still. And we have Ronald Wong with us. Ronnie, how you doing?
I am doing well. Thank you, Peter. And thank you, Don, for having me back after my fiasco last time. I'm sorry. Whatever I did, I'm pretty sure it's bad.
Yeah, I mean...
When you broke into that giant racial tirade, and we had to...
It happens more often than you think, Don. So
your 3-week probation is over, and
anger management classes are beginning.
Yeah,
so
but
we're fine. Yeah, we're fine.
But 3 strikes. Yeah, strikes. Remember, that's strike 1. So we got a big show today. We've got an interview coming up with Tonia Dudley. She is with Cofense. We're going to talk about all things phishing a little bit later. But in the meantime, we have some news to get to. And the big story from this week involves Citrix. At nakedsecurity.sophos.com, Citrix admits attackers breached its network. What we know. And I assume Citrix only admits this because GDPR now?
Actually, this is kind of a funny one. They don't have a choice but to admit it because of how they found out. This is a really embarrassing breach for them because basically attackers got into their network and were kind of roaming around. And Citrix didn't spot that. In fact, they got a call from the FBI one day, and the FBI said, hey, we just want to let you know that attackers are in your network. And so at that point, they were able to take action. They haven't announced exactly how long the attackers were in there or what information they got at. In fact, that's kind of what the whole purpose of the Naked Security article is. Sophos is a very trustworthy company, and they won't report on things that they can't prove factually. So they go on to basically say there's a lot of holes of information right now that we don't know. Citrix, if you're not familiar with them, they make remote desktop software that allows you to launch applications on a server but see them on a workstation screen. It is used by thousands of hospitals, government agencies, schools. I mean, it is used by some really, really big companies. And that means if they were breached, in theory, a number of these clients could have potentially been leapfrog victims off of this. So that's really, really bad. It sounds like the attack took the form of weak credentials, that they were doing what was called credential spraying and managed to hit the credentials of one user to be able to get a foothold in the network. And once they were in, they started roaming around. Now, while Sophos is a responsible journalistic entity, let's jump over to the Register for a moment. We know the Register, they will report the moment they hear something and not necessarily have to worry about verifying the details. But according to them, Iranian-backed hackers ransacked Citrix, swiped 6 terabytes of emails, documents, secrets, and so on. So this very well may be true, may not, who knows. The Iranian hackers and the Russian hackers are usually the boogeymen that get blamed for most of these things. But the reality is, if an attacker was on their network for a period of time, exfiltrating 6 terabytes of data is very, very reasonable. And if they're on the LAN, having access to things like source code, it's almost a given. So I'm curious to see what will happen from this. I haven't seen like Citrix source code posted on GitHub yet or Pastebin or something, but the ramifications of this could be pretty big.
Right, so that's how you become an open source company. Just kidding. Yeah. I guess we're open source now.
I don't think they can go open source because in the early days, they partnered with Microsoft. And I mean, like really, where Microsoft owned half the software, and because the product used to be called Citrix WinFrame, and when Microsoft and them split off, they kind of changed its name to MetaFrame, and then it became Citrix XP, and now it's Citrix XenApp, right?
XenApp.
So it's gone through several name changes over the years, but I think some of their code base is still owned by Microsoft, so I don't think they can go open source. Maybe this is their workaround. We'll let the Iranians open source it for us.
So what is the... what's the takeaway for anyone that uses Citrix right now? I mean, obviously, update passwords and things, but assume that they may have used it as a backdoor into your system and do some looking?
Let me give you the worst case scenario, right? An attacker is on Citrix's LAN. They have access to servers and so on. Citrix is obviously, they have a build system in place where they build their closed source executables they distribute out to the clients in the form of updates. An attacker could have snuck malware into the source code it gets compiled as part of the product and it goes out as part of the regular updates. Digitally signed with Citrix's actual key, you wouldn't be able to detect it. So at this moment, this is one of those tough spots because with security, we're always telling people, do your updates, do your updates. But in this case, we need to take a moment and make sure that we know Citrix has checked everything, that there isn't malicious code going in their official updates. So you might want to be a little sensitive at updating your Citrix systems. It's a tough spot to be in because you want to do your updates to stay secure, but now you're at risk. So it's really bad. I actually know a handful of people that work at Citrix and stuff. I don't wish them ill or anything. I hope they are able to overcome this and improve their security as a result. It's a tough way to learn that your security is not adequate.
All right. Well, Don's advice to you then is sit tight and pray. Sounds like pretty much.
To whichever deity assists you in computer-related tasks.
I would pray to all of them just to be safe. Go to any of them there. All right. Well, let's shift gears now over to what I think is another reliable source, VentureBeat, VentureBeat.com. Bruce Schneier, I always say that one wrong. It says it's time for technologists to become lawmakers. And Don, you said this is something he's been saying for a while, but this happened out at RSA. I must have missed it.
Yeah, we interviewed Bruce Schneier 2 years ago at RSA, and I think it was 2 years ago. It was a while ago, maybe 3 years ago.
May have been 3.
It might have been the first time we were out there, 16, I think, 2016.
Yeah, and we were talking about IoT threats, right? So Internet of Things is a mess. Half the devices that are out there are easy to compromise. You're hearing about Nest devices getting compromised, weak passwords, routers. And at the time, Bruce said the solution here is for the government to get involved and regulate IoT. Now, depending on where you stand, right? If you're a Republican or a conservative, you believe in smaller government and regulation is bad, so that's not a good suggestion. If you are a technologist, getting the government involved in your technology is usually bad, right? So, I mean, there's a number of ways where this is bad. But there's this little sliver of hope that maybe you get the right people in place and they help to ensure that IoT devices are more secure. But I will tell you, I know Bruce is a very well-respected individual in the security industry and so on, but I think this is a absolutely horrible idea. And if there's anybody who can screw it up, it's our government. This is just a terrible idea.
Yeah, there's no doubt. I think that because a friend of mine, we started chatting about this not too long ago, and he said, "Oh no, it's a great idea because technologists at least understand, all the details behind why technologies need to be pushed to the forefront, why they have to be protected and stuff." And I kind of argued with him like, "Have you known anybody in government that's ever come back and said, let's make an improvement on it," and the improvement has actually been much better than what the original technology was about? And I couldn't name a single one where I thought, yeah, adding in government, or technologists in the government, it tends to change the technologist rather than the technology change. The government changes the technologist rather than technologists changing the government.
I don't know what's worse though, because what we have now is you've got Mark Zuckerberg testifying to Congress and basically just explaining to them how to upload photos for their grandkids and things like, how does this internet work? And then you've got, I think it was Japan we talked about in the past that's right. They put a security minister or someone in place that had never used a computer.
Yeah,
so
that's right.
That's the other approach. So maybe the extremes aren't the way to go.
So I mean, we could kind of change the headline a little bit. That basically he's saying it's time for technologists to become politicians, right? That he's saying we need to get Mark Zuckerberg to run for office, or we need Bill Gates to be a senator, and then maybe we can get some movement. But the reality is, if you want to be a politician in the U.S. today, you kind of have to plan that early on in your life, and you have to set that trajectory. That's not an easy thing. And if you're a technologist, that's not something you even want to do. So it's a messed up system. And right now, in my opinion, the only way we solve this is by voting with our dollar, right? That I won't buy a webcam from some company I've never heard of because I know they're not going to secure it. I look to see, is there a reliable update history for this device? Is it a trustworthy company? And so on. That's because I take the time to do that. But I know that most Americans don't, and they're slowly learning one by one as they get compromised that that's a bad way to do the business.
Yeah, and it's strange because his call is really for technologists to really take this on as a career, right? So he's essentially calling for technologists to say, no, you need to become policymakers. You need to make this your own career. And I was like, once you start to do that, right, you tend to lose touch with whatever technology you're in anyways because you're too busy trying to make laws about it. So it was the same argument that, like I said, I had with my friend who just seemed to say, no, here's the 6 people that would do great. And I was like, and he mentioned Linus Torvalds. He said he'd be a great lawmaker on this. I was like, Linus tried to run a company. If I remember, I think you and I were talking about it. I was like, he wasn't really good at that. I don't know what makes you think.
He's not a U.S. citizen
He's
either.
not a U.S. citizen.
John McAfee's been running for president for.
Oh, yeah, that's true.
For a few times,
while,
I think.
yeah.
So,
Yeah, and he's a nutbag.
I mean, I'm just saying we've got options. So, if we can bring back up the page there one more time, I think the big tragedy is that shirt that was clearly hacked as well. Looks like a nice pinstripe shirt for those of you listening to the audio version here. Nice, pinstripe white and blue shirt, and just a. I don't know. Is that lunch?
No, if you stare at it just right, there's a sailboat that pops out. It's like three-dimensional.
Oh, yeah. Yeah, don't move, Bruce. Don't move. I
It really does look like he ate soup. And
Bruce is a great guy. He's certainly a little eccentric, but he does a lot of good.
Oh, yeah.
He really does push a lot of security to the forefront. I appreciate what he does. I think I've got one of his books on the shelf over there. But I think getting government more involved in IT security is not a good thing. I mean, maybe doing proactive scanning. Well, I mean, obviously, like the work the FBI is doing, where they'll call you up and tell you hackers are in your network. That's a good start.
That's appreciated. That's proactive, policing there. I like that. All right, well, let's move over to one of my favorite sites for news. ClickOnDetroit.com, Detroit's trusted news source. A new data breach hits more than 600,000 Michigan residents, and consumers are urged to be cautious. Well, that's a little late. Isn't it? Yeah. So it looks like this is something that has affected healthcare information?
Yes.
I'm understanding. Okay.
Yeah, so they have a kind of not a state-run corporation, but a corporation that groups together medical care providers in the state of Michigan, and they got breached. And as a result, a number of different companies, they list them off, Blue Cross Blue Shield of Michigan, Health Alliance Plan, McLaren Healthcare, Three Rivers Health, and North Ottawa Community Health System. So all of their records were basically being handled by this one organization. It was breached, and so now all of those details go out. Now, when you hear about it like a credit card company getting breached, it's not really that big of a deal at the end of the day. You got to change your credit card numbers. Your credit score might get messed around with or whatever. So we've kind of gotten used to it. I've been desensitized to it. But when it's healthcare, that's a bigger risk because maybe you've got your personal health information. Maybe you've got things in your health history that you don't want to get out, and that could potentially get out. Now, I don't know the extent of this breach. They say that the user identities were compromised, but I don't know that it goes on to say anything else. Apparently, it was a ransomware attack where computers were encrypted. And the challenge with those ransomware attacks is once a data is encrypted, you don't really know if they're exfiltrating it or not.
Right.
So they may have taken copies of things. And if they have copies of your insurance claim justification forms, that tells you, what treatments you had, then potentially sensitive information for people could be getting out.
And the Register is now reporting that it was Iraq responsible for this attack. So.
North Korea and Russia teamed up to.
By the way, the reason I love Click on Detroit so much are a couple of the headlines on the side. Can you choose the most depressing Disney movie scene? So I guess they show you images there. And then my other favorite one here, Michigan woman mad about tomatoes throws cookie case and tries to jump the counter at Burger King. So a lot going on in Detroit. Head on over to clickondetroit.com for the latest in
I know it's
Michigan
not
news.
tech, but the depressing Disney scenes, there's Up where...
Okay, you want to bring this up?
Yeah,
that is.
Knocks
clearly.
off. That's
yeah,
pretty
man.
depressing.
If you
Are we
didn't
supposed-
cry in the first 5 minutes of that
that's,
sucker.
Big Hero.
Big Hero 6.
Yeah, Big Hero 6.
Which I never saw the first 5. I didn't see
Yeah.
Yeah.
any of those.
If you did,
Lion King. Well, it says
you
Lion
won
King
a
right
few.
there.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Oh,
I
yeah.
didn't think it was sad when Mufasa died. He just
Oh, yeah.
circle
You were
of
rooting for
life,
Scar?
right? I mean,
Yeah.
it was
yeah.
Elton John was
Dumbo.
telling me the whole time
Okay,
it's fine.
well.
Now Dumbo was sad,
Yeah,
right?
that was-
It was a mom.
Well, the new Dumbo, the live-action Dumbo, coming soon to a theater near
no.
you.
Live action with more CG than you could shake a stick at.
No, I'm pretty sure they trained
It's people in elephant
an
costumes.
actual elephant to
Stunt
fly.
elephant.
All right, the rest of these are dumb.
We
Toy Story
digress.
3, dumb, whatever. All right,
Are
so
we supposed to guess them? Because it says the names right next to the...
I'm pretty sure there were more than 6 on that page too.
We should have gone with the Burger King article. I knew it. Because there is video. Next time. Next Technado.
Next on Technado.
Burger King. Tomatoes. All right. Let's head over to bleepingcomputer.com now. Samsung Galaxy S10 face recognition can easily be bypassed.
Who'd have guessed?
Ronnie, this is a story you found, and my face recognizes now that Don looks shocked.
Oh, I actually put this in that channel because I knew that Don hates face technology. So I thought, what a surprise for Don. So this is actually a great one for him to have to talk about for a few minutes.
Have I complained about it on the podcast how much I hate Face ID?
We
I
played Apple
think-
ID on Apple a lot.
yeah.
But
Face ID has been so bad for me that my iPhone 10 is in a drawer back there, and I'm on my old iPhone 5S right now because I can use my fingerprint. With the S10, I thought this was really interesting, though, because you hear about all the protection they put in there to say you can't just hold up a picture of somebody because it senses whether they're three-dimensional or not. Well, somebody got the bright idea. What if I take a video of the person's face and I hold the video up and it works?
It works.
so much for that.
Yeah, he's actually got video of himself doing it on this site, so you can check it out and watch for yourself. That looks like a lot of fun. Now, in the video thumbnail, at least, he's right behind his camera, so maybe it's such a good facial recognition that it can see through objects.
Well, I think that's probably just a staged photo right
No.
there.
It uses
that look
radar.
staged?
Yeah.
Now, Windows Hello, right? On your laptop, my new laptop has it. It's got the infrared cameras, where not only can it sense whether you're 3D, but it can also sense temperature to know that you're still alive. That would defeat something like this.
Well, the phone's
And
hot.
I think, well, I guess that's true, isn't it?
Especially if it's a Samsung phone. Hey! Oh, where's the rim shot? I don't know. We don't have the rim shot. I can do the laughing.
We have a laugh track.
I just should have happened right at the joke, but oh well.
Yeah. So Face ID, I still don't get it. Like the fingerprint seemed pretty secure, but everybody started going to Face ID and saying it was more secure. Windows does the same thing where they want you to do a PIN to log in. Like, no, a PIN is more secure than your password. And it seems odd what everybody's promoting as more secure these days.
What if you don't have fingers?
Yeah,
well,
I think that the big push against was the passwords, right? How insecure they really can be, especially in today's technology. So I think for most people, anything besides a password is going to be considered more secure, even if they can't prove it.
I just want to have, like, I don't know, a little tray that comes out and you spit in it, and that's how you authenticate.
Yeah, but then I'm going to carry around a vial of warm Don spit
Wow.
that I can just pour on my computer. Sentence I never thought I'd say. All right.
I hope you never say it again.
Let's shift gears again. Over to Tom's Hardware. Adobe Shockwave will be discontinued on April 9th. And the news to me here is that Adobe Shockwave had not yet been discontinued.
Yeah.
I know.
I remember this on.
I know we went away from like
this
Flash
95
years ago.
So we talked about this briefly before the podcast, but just to catch you all up, I also was shocked that this thing is still no pun intended. I'm being shocked. But when you talk about Shockwave, you start thinking about sites like Homestar Runner and the old Jedi the College Years videos, and all this old Flash animation stuff, and Shockwave back when it was Macromedia was the company that owned it that got acquired by Adobe. Adobe is not known for providing decent security or security at all. And so to see an ancient product like this still being supported is amazing to me. But it was up until April 9th. So if you're relying on Shockwave, that'll be the last version. And it's already not secure. So it's not like April 9th will be some big moment on your calendar. But it's not going to get any better.
And it also says here Adobe's planning to kill Flash by 2020. So we'll have to figure out something. We're on the clock.
Yeah.
We've got to figure out something to take the place of
I
that.
think Steve Jobs killed Flash a while back.
That's true. Yeah.
He did.
I'm surprised
Flash
these days.
is dead, yeah.
Do you guys actually use Flash at all?
I know I've got it disabled, and I think there's like one site that I can't remember what it is that I've got.
Yeah, there's
to
something that I
turn
run
it
that
back on
has it.
for.
Every now and then I'll come across
Yeah.
a site, and Chrome will do that warning, like, oh, you've got to enable Flash, and I'm surprised when you encounter that.
Right.
'Cause HTML5 really killed off a lot of that. You've got persistent web apps now that really take the place of it. I don't really understand why these technologies are still there, but I'm sure there's enterprises that have legacy systems and millions of dollars invested, and that's why it's still out there.
All right, let's head over to Slashdot now on tech.slashdot.org. less than a month to go before Google breaks hundreds of thousands of links all over the internet. So if Kim Kardashian wasn't able to break the internet, apparently Google thinks they're going to take it on. So what is this referring to, Don?
This one caught my interest really fast. Like, oh man, something bad is going to happen. And as a network administrator, anytime you see news like this, you need to be checking your network.
Right.
See, is this going to affect me? And then I read what they're talking about, and it's completely stupid. So basically, Picasa.
Yeah, Picasa.
Did either of you guys use Picasa?
I did.
Yeah, the photo
Yeah.
sharing.
I loved Picasa. And at one point, I had all of my family photos in there, all organized by year. And it did face identification, so I could say, show me pictures of my son. And it would pull up all the years and stuff. It was great. I loved it. Well, when Google launched Google Plus, which we're all very active Google Plus communicators.
Sure.
Yeah.
I've been plussing things this whole episode.
Yeah.
Is that the verb?
I don't know.
Plus,
Never
plus
really used
one.
it.
Now, the one thing I remember about Google Plus is when Don said, I'm moving away from Facebook, I'm going to jump on Google Plus. I remember this. And he started, and a week later, he was like, I'm done with it. That's what I remember.
That was like-
He's like, that's so stupid.
Did you last longer on Google Plus or on the Pixel?
That's probably about the same.
About the same, probably. But I do remember that. He's like, nah, Facebook is done. Everybody's going to Google Plus, and he was on it for a week, and then he was done.
Yeah. Google just they did not put their best foot forward on that one, but it didn't stop them from committing people to use it. So they took things like Picasa and rolled it into Google Plus, so that if you shared any photo from inside of Picasa, the share was done with a Google Plus link. Well, Google announced last year they were killing off Google Plus, which I mean it's basically dead anyway. But now there's all these historic links, all these Picasa links that are tied to Google Plus, and when Google Plus ends, so do all these backlinks. Now, most of us, I mean, Peter, you work with web pages a good bit. Like, when would you link a photo using a Google Plus link? You're going to use S3 buckets or something else. This is something that would really just affect home users.
Yeah, I can't think of why you would link externally to that as opposed to something in your own repository.
So it's not a big risk for businesses, but for home users, maybe you have your family photos and so on that are tied to Picasa or tied to Google Plus, and if you have, you can just assume all the shares that you've created are broken. Dropbox did something similar when they killed off Carousel, and nobody got upset about that. I liked Carousel as well. In fact, I had moved my photos from Picasa to Carousel, so maybe I'm the kiss of death.
Where are your photos now so I can know to make sure my photos are not on that?
Actually, mine are in Google Photos now,
man,
which I always wonder, why do they have Google Photos when they already had Picasa?
This is why.
So,
I'm over on Amazon.
So
I don't think
if
that's
you're
going away.
relying on Google Plus links, though, do know that the day is coming. Did they actually say the date in here?
And this very thorough article?
Yeah, it's a summary. If we go to the actual Greenspun article, we'll probably find a date. Oh, less than a month, right? So the timer's ticking.
It's probably tied to Brexit. I think it's right at the same time.
Didn't Brexit? Well, never mind.
Yeah, that's a whole other
sensitive.
thing. Yeah, you're gonna get Ronnie all worked up if
Yeah.
you start talking about Brexit.
Yeah, actually, this reminds me of like links on Cisco's pages. You ever been to some of them where it's like, click here and find out more, and it's just like 404 is gone. It's just completely
It's already
like,
dead.
well, there's 10 links on the page, and 9 of them are those links where it's like they're gone. They're dead.
Even the
So-
source article from Greenspun doesn't have when it's going to occur. This is ridiculous.
Less than a month from now.
This is journalism and reporting at our quality level. What the heck?
Yeah, just looking for other people to do the work for us. Speaking of which, our next article is from someone else. ArsTechnica.com has this one. Google hardware makes cuts to laptop and tablet development, cancels products. So they're getting out of the social media game, and now what does this mean? Are we cutting back on our Chromebooks now?
All right. I like Google. I used to use just tons of Google products, but you cannot count on them maintaining a service for more than a year anymore. They just it's like they have a short attention span or ADD or something where they just bounce from idea to idea to idea. They were pushing Android tablets for a while. And then they decided, nah, Android tablets aren't really where it's at. Instead, the Chromebook, that's what you really want. And then they proceeded to launch numerous models of Chromebook, even a model where you could pop the monitor off so that it was effectively a tablet, a Chromebook tablet.
Full circle.
It never bothered them that, things like on-screen keyboard and all that don't work very well, but it's fine. We'll push that off. People will love it. And at the end of the day, nobody wants to buy a $1,400 Chromebook.
Yeah, true.
They sell them. They sell Chromebooks that have like i7 processors in them and 8 gigs of RAM, and then it's just a web browser. So the Chromebook is just a totally screwed up design. it's got great security. It's super stable. I've never crashed a Chromebook, but you get a lot of that because it's so limited in its functionality, and you can't charge a premium for that. $200, $300, even $400 Chromebooks, those are successful.
Yeah, the ones for students and schools like that. I mean, those are they really fill that niche perfectly.
So what Google is doing is they're starting to kill a few things off, and they're trying to trim down that Chromebook line. I think they list the models in here somewhere, but there's basically just too many different sizes, too many different versions, and so they're going to trim that down and try and right-size it. The ones that aren't selling, they're going to try and end. I think, with like the $1,400 Chromebook, those Google was using them internally with their employees all over the place, but outside, people just aren't buying those. It just doesn't make any sense.
It's like they're doing their marketing internally and not actually going outside and realizing until they try and sell it and like, oh, nobody really wanted this.
They ask around the boardroom, would you buy a $1,400 one? Yeah, sure.
It reminds me of the old, like the Detroit automakers. Where we had the foreign car influx here in the U.S. People started buying Toyota, and Nissan, and Honda, and you would ask these like Ford executives, and they would look out their window, and all they would see were Fords out there, and they say, "We're doing fine," and
business is booming. Yeah. So. Granted, we get 50% off, but whatever. All right, we're going to stay on Ars Technica now for a moment, and another story that Ronnie found for us this week. Next Windows release will include dtrace support. So, Ronnie, since you're here, why don't you tell us what dtrace is?
Yeah, no, well, it actually tells you right exactly there. Yeah, the very fact is a Unix tool that's been used for a lot of great things in the past for Unix to be able to trace and do all, like it says, dtrace, to do all these things that really don't, or Windows really didn't have the capability of doing. But now they're saying that they do. But there's a problem in how they're going to move forward with this. If you read through the whole article, is because Windows has this kernel or a kernel protection plus or plan or product. I can't remember. It's KPP. That's all I remember. Is that it's actually designed so that the dtrace can't get into the kernel, which apparently the dtrace relies on to make sure everything happens.
So dtrace is a debugger, right. And when you have a crash, right? The crash is not normally caused by the primary executable of the application. Crashes in a lot of cases are caused by libraries that you're linking to, and so you need a debugger to see what the heck was your application doing with that library, or what libraries were even in use. And debuggers can share that, but because it's a crash, it's got to run in kernel space. It has to have access to that because the application space just crashed. You can't get the data out of that. So it is important. In the Unix world, they've had dtrace for a long time. Introducing it in Windows will be interesting. Microsoft has gotten a lot more friendly with open source technologies and bringing tools from other platforms over. And a good bit of that, I don't know if this one was, but Mark Rusinovich had started porting.
Right.
Was he involved in this?
I think so.
Okay. If you're not familiar with Mark Rusinovich, he created a lot of the sysinternals tools, which, like the process kill utility and what was the remote PS exec? A lot of these were tools that we already had in the Unix world, in the Linux world, and he was creating equivalents inside of Windows. So this one, it'll be interesting to see what happens because technically every Windows install you do these days is a virtual machine. Even if you just install Windows 10, it's technically a virtual machine running on top of a hypervisor. And debugging in that environment is really, really tough. So it'll be interesting to see how that one turns out. It's always nice to have extra utilities for troubleshooting. And because it's one that's been around so long, because this was actually created for Solaris back in the day, that the documentation on it is really extensive, and that means it's a great tool to use.
And we are one step closer to Don's prediction of a Linux distro from Microsoft, another open source tool.
I'm starting to doubt. Like, they put so much effort into recreating all of the Linux API calls and stuff to create the Windows subsystem for Linux that it just seems like they could have. For how much did Red Hat sell for? $40 billion, right?
Yeah.
For $40 billion, they could have owned Red Hat and had their own distro on a stable platform with a huge just level of maturity. I think Microsoft is just not going to do it. I don't know. I might have to backtrack on my prediction.
Wow. Next thing you know, you're going to give up your dream of a cell phone computer tablet hybrid.
Somebody's going to make that damn thing.
Yeah.
Right. Because they've been so successful in the past with that so far.
Yeah. I know.
Well, you've got to fail to get to, it took Heinz, 56 tries of failure
or number
before that last one really worked out.
And there were 39 WDs right before.
Yeah, sure. Star 69, they tried and failed 68 times. I don't know if that's how that works.
Yeah.
All right. Let's head over now to a fun one. Today at the independent.co.uk, Tumblr porn ban. 1/5 of users have deserted the site since it removed adult content. Yeah, that's kind of how that works. If you remove something that everyone is coming there for, they're not going to go there anymore.
At least a fifth.
Yeah, at least apparently a fifth, and the other 80% are still just clicking around the site looking. Where was that link? It was here. So yeah, the not suitable for work ban includes any content, including photos, videos, GIFs, and illustrations that depict sex acts. Which, I mean, that's what Tumblr was, wasn't it?
So, I'm surprised that you remember Ronnie back in the day. Ronnie and I used to work for a classroom training company, and we all started Tumblr blogs back in the day, right? So that we could blog out because it was a blogging platform and it looked slick and so on. And after a while, well, most of us kind of just ditched out, but you would tell people, "Hey, I've got a Tumblr blog," and they would say, "Isn't that the porn site?" And I never thought of it that way.
It is.
Yeah, but then it turns out that they had a huge amount of porn on there, and they finally, I think they're trying to do either an IPO or they're trying to sell, or just get acquired or something, and they decided to clean up their image by eliminating adult content, and it's cost them a fifth of their user base. This is worse than like Twitter. With Twitter, they'll lose a fifth of their users overnight because they filter out bots.
Yeah.
But here, like, these are real people, real customers. That
These were the only real customers on Tumblr. The other ones were the bots reading Don's old blog.
There you go.
I love the quotes here, though. There's a petition with 600,000 people who put their real name on there. But the petition quotes, let people post porn. It's 90% of the reason anybody is on this site in the first place. If you really want a non-18 and up Tumblr, then start a new one with that specific goal in mind. Don't rip down what people have spent years working on. But I wonder if they had said, you know what, we're putting a ban on all suitable for work stuff, if they would have lost 4/5 of their traffic. So who knows? We'll continue to monitor these numbers and bring you weekly reports on Technado moving forward.
I mean, if they went all adult, wouldn't they just basically be Pornhub at that point?
Yeah.
Oh no, I guess they do blogging, not videos. I don't know enough about Tumblr.
So it's like Penthouse letters.
Yeah, the articles. I go there for the articles.
I read Tumblr for the articles. I always have, and I always will. I'm a purist. That's just me, though.
Yeah,
you do you. All right. Well, let's head over now. We do have an interview. We're gonna kick Ronnie out. We're gonna bring in Tonia Dudley from Cofense. We're gonna find out. Cofense used to be Fish Me, and Tonia was out there too with Bruce Schneier and I at RSA, hanging out. So we'll find out all about that. Coming up right after this on Technado.
I'm James Packer. I'm the General Manager of Kirk ISS based in the Cayman Islands. I used IT Pro TV extensively in my last place. It grew very well, helped upskill the team. I had 110 engineers in the field and we had dozens of IT Pro accounts with the guys training, and last year alone they passed over 40 certs by using the online training. I think I can safely say without IT Pro TV I wouldn't be where I was today, because I only got this job on the back of the qualifications I have.
Welcome back to Technado, and as promised, we are now joined by Tonia Dudley, who is the Security Solutions Advisor at Cofense. How you doing today, Tonia?
I'm good. How are you?
I'm pretty good, thank you. And so just to start off, for those that maybe are not familiar with Cofense, which is not, as I thought, a fence for stolen goods, it is some sort of technology company, correct?
Correct. We are a phishing defense company. Most people know us as PhishMe, which we changed from that name a year ago to Cofense. And mainly the reason why we changed that name is because we are full phishing defense. We originally started with doing phishing simulation training, which is in the security awareness space. But as we added more products to defend against phishing attacks, we broadened our reach. And so kind of get people to understand that we're more than just phishing training.
Okay, so just to kind of understand the services you guys provide, I know in our company once before we did one of those simulations where the CEO went out and hired a company to basically to phish us, and
Sure.
I think got a few. Is that what you guys do essentially?
Yeah, so our simulation platform is for companies that buy our solution. They will simulate a phishing attack to their users to educate them on the real phishing dangers. And then also as the company started and we started to realize that ultimately we want people to report these messages to their security team so that they can then, respond to these incidents if it was a real phish. So then we created the reporter button, which goes into Outlook for the user to report that phish. And then as we started to get more of these reporter buttons deployed through organizations, then all of a sudden our security incident response teams were overwhelmed with all these phishing reports now. So then we developed Triage. Like I said, we're that full phishing defense. And so Triage allows that incident response team to analyze and put a little bit of automation into analyzing the phishing attacks, finding those real phishing threats and mitigating and analyzing those.
Okay, so that's really cool. So there's a button there, people can actually report it. Now, does that go to their system admin as well to let them know?
Yeah, it stays with internal. You can configure that to where you want that to go. And then when we configure Triage, when we install the solution, then we point that inbox to Triage so that it gets ingested into Triage. So what it also will do is cluster those like messages together to kind of reduce that burden and overhead that an incident response person might have. If they had to analyze each individual message that came in, that's burdensome, right? But if we can cluster those like messages together, tag them with some known threats that we have that we feed into to Triage, it helps bubble up that risk level so they can get to those real phishing messages quicker.
Now, you mentioned Microsoft Outlook on the client side. On the server side, does that mean this is like a Microsoft Exchange solution, or do you support any mail server?
No, we support anything, and also with Reporter, it does go across all types of. We have many types of email platforms that we integrate with. So it goes onto Gmail, it will go into Lotus Notes. Crazy enough that there's still people that use Lotus Notes out there. It still fits into that. So it does go across multiple platforms.
That's awesome. We've actually talked to a couple of other vendors over the years, like KnowBe4 and Wombat, that have that simulated phishing approach where they send out the email and see who they can trick. But I don't know that any of them actually have a platform that goes beyond that to help you take that and act upon it to stop the phishing emails. This is a problem that's really been ramping up over the last couple of years. It used to be really rare that I get a phishing email. I'd say I get at least one a day now. They are just hammering in. Maybe I'm special or a good target. I don't know, but I get a lot.
You're public, right? You're publicly known. Like I never got anything ever until a month ago when I did a public interview, and then all of a sudden now I'm getting some. I had never ever gotten any.
Should I be worried that if I'm not getting like one a day, that just means I'm not noticing?
You're not identifying.
No, you're of no value. No, everyone is a target. I'm sure you get them in your personal email account.
Sure. Uh-oh. Yeah. I'm gonna go to Did I Get Pwned in a moment here, and we've
had some bizarre ones just the other week, and you should have got one of these because I think everybody did. There were these emails that they looked like they were coming from our CEO and Tim, and it said, "Hey, I'm currently in a meeting. I'm kind of busy, but I need some help. I need you to purchase some iTunes gift cards to send to me to give to one of our customers." And it was just a bizarre, off-the-wall thing. My immediate response to those things is I always respond back with something silly. I responded to that one and said, should it be $10,000 like the last time? And you have a little conversation.
So to clarify, that was not real.
No, that was not real.
But we are seeing a spike in those, and they have gone away from just asking for money to now asking for gift cards, and like it is evolving, and they continue to evolve their campaigns to make them more real, that people are actually going to give them that $50, $200 that they're asking for, because even those small little increments add up, right?
Sure. Yeah, and I guess that's less suspicious than asking for cryptocurrency or something, but probably they're doing that so it's harder to trace or to track back the funds. But that's really interesting. So I'm curious, you were just at RSA. I was out there as well, and unfortunately I was trapped in our booth, so unable to get to your talks. But you had a couple of them. Can you tell us a little bit about what you talked about there?
Sure. So on Wednesday I did a lab on with somebody that I partnered with at the Security Awareness Summit last August. So we did the same lab again for creating and building a phishing training program. It's amazing that people are still just now starting on, getting into this space to train their users on this threat. And then the second day, Thursday, I did one on automation versus human intuition. So at what points do you automate versus you still need to have somebody look at something, right? You can't automate everything and assume that you're going to not have false positives and miss an alert. That is critical. That still needs a human to look at something to verify that, yeah, that's legit.
So, a lot of these attacks, they've been getting more advanced. Sometimes I've been receiving a few emails where there's actually like no link or no action item. It's really weird. It's just like a hi, and there's, various people's names in the CC field, almost like they're kind of trying to feel out what addresses are valid. It seems like these technologies are advancing and evolving a good bit. And I know you mentioned that Cofense has been looking at a lot of different trending events and kind of what that direction is like in 2019. So how do you see that going?
So what we see, because we have a phishing defense center where we actually manage that triage solution that I talked about, where we manage it for our customers. And so we're able to get some insight into what organizations are really seeing. Credential phishing is on the rise, and it's really big right now as far as, many people are going to the cloud. O365 is in the cloud. Attackers, threat actors are trying to get those credentials because they can get those credentials, and we see them get those credentials, make their way into the environment. They even get into inboxes to send out emails internally as if they're that trusted individual inside the organization. So we're seeing credential theft or credential phishing as a really big threat right now.
What's the main end game? I know some of them do it for different reasons, right? Like some of them will want to try and make money, but is there something other motivation, or is it really just all about making money?
So I think there's two aspects, right? There's the consumer, they're targeting consumers where they're trying to get, ransomware, get money. Then you have when they're targeting organizations and government entities where they're actually trying to get a foothold into that organization, right? For, data breaches and other things that they're trying to gain from that organization. So it has a couple different aspects. So if we're targeting an organization, they're trying to get inside that organization to get whatever their IP or their data is that they have internally.
So I'm a little curious from kind of the lay perspective. You mentioned credential phishing. What else would people be phishing for? Because that's kind of what I think of, or the things that I've seen is, someone's trying to get you to log into your PayPal account or log into to your email or something like that. What are some of the other types of things people are looking for besides credentials?
So, besides data, sometimes it's just trying to drop malware into the organization, right? Because then it gives them a foothold into the organization. So clicking on a link that then installs something that you don't see it actually doing anything, but it's actually installing it in the background. And then they're getting a foothold into that organization. Maybe if it's a consumer, maybe it's to drop a bot, right? To get, expand their bot network. So, they maybe that install is really installing a bot that they're leveraging then to send out more spam and phishing emails.
Yeah, I know there were rumors that when there was the big Sony breach the other year for Sony, the movie arm of Sony Pictures, where all their machines got hit with ransomware and lockdown and all that. The rumor was that it started from a phishing email that compromised some credentials that allowed them to get in and then do some real damage behind the scenes. So, it can turn
so
nasty
it's a
fast.
multi-threat. Yeah, it's a multi-threaded, attempt, right? It's not just they're going to do one thing. It's they're going to do one thing and then another thing and another thing. So, having been able to stand on the sea front line, a major incident a few years back, and getting to see that daily activity of what they're coming in and doing every day, it's eye-opening. And it is real. They really are coming into organizations, either stealing their IP, their data, or just then even like a small organization that works with bigger companies, using that small company to make a foothold. We talked about Target, right? It was the HVAC supplier that was servicing that actually dropped the malware that made it into Target. So they're doing the research and they're finding out ways to get into organizations.
So what do you recommend that companies do to be better prepared or to have some kind of defense against phishing like that?
So obviously gateways are important, but they're not 100%. So that's why training your users to look out for those messages and to report those as soon as they're finding them, we find that to be the most effective, because you can put all the technical controls in place, but ultimately they're still going to find their way. They're learning their ways around these technology gateways to still get in. And so if you can train your users to find them, identify, and report, that's ultimately what's going to save the organization. When we talk about credential phishing, multi-factor is a must. We know that if you have multi-factor on, it's harder for them to even make their way in because they don't have that second factor to authenticate. So we see that as a big advantage to helping stop that threat. We did see a customer where they actually had a credential attack come in, about 250 emails. Only one person actually gave away their credentials, but within 15 seconds, they were able to log into their payroll system and change their direct deposit. So they already knew enough about the organization that when they had success, it was scripted to go exactly where they wanted to go. So they're doing their homework, and they know what they're after ultimately.
We had just reported a few weeks ago on a really sophisticated phishing attack where the email contained a link, and you'd click on it, and it would take you to a imposter login page for, I believe it was for Google accounts, if I remember correct. And
Sure.
I mean, even went down to the multi-factor authentication screen, and it would ask for the code. And when you typed in your code, you were just proxying through them, which
Sure.
gave them the access token. So even multi-factor can be compromised.
Sure, it can, right? It's not 100% foolproof, but it does add that stumbling block. But if they're going to that level of sophistication, then they know a lot about you, and they're targeting you for a very specific reason.
If they're going to that level, I feel they've earned it at that point.
Right?
You just give
So,
up.
yeah, go for it. Yeah,
There's
you can.
the white flag.
You can have it. I'm sorry. So I'm curious. I was looking at your bio here on the RSA page, and it mentioned you have a seat on the National Cybersecurity Society Board. Can you tell us a little bit about that organization and what you guys do there?
Sure. So that organization is specifically helping small businesses. We know small businesses do not have the resources to stand up the cybersecurity defenses that a large organization does. So it's to kind of give them access to some of those benefits, and training them on why cybersecurity is important, giving them some resources that other organizations offer for free. Or even at a discounted rate, to kind of just teach them about the importance of, you're a small business, you're still highly targeted, just like large organizations, and maybe even more so because they're a foothold. So just to help out that way.
Gotcha. And in my continued cyber stalking, I've gone down your LinkedIn, and I'm curious. I'm always curious to see.
I have all these alerts going off on my profiles.
Yeah, well, I told you I'm going to try to social engineer you here. So I'm curious just about your journey to how you got to where you are, because it looks like you kind of started on a business analyst side, and a lot of our listeners are people that are getting into IT and starting that career path. So I'm just curious if you can tell us a little bit about your path to where you're at, and how you feel it prepared you for what you're doing now.
So actually, initially, I did 14 years in finance before even moving into IT. And then once I was in IT, kind of took on, that business analyst role and project manager role. And then Sarbanes-Oxley came out, and having that IT and finance background really helped with kind of understanding how we need to build controls and managing that whole Sarbanes-Oxley compliance framework. So I did that for about 5 years. And then I was ready to make that next move into what's next, and cyber was starting to be that new big thing that was interesting. And so made my way in by helping out with policies and standards and security exceptions. So kind of using that as my entry point to learn more about it, but having that experience in the background really helped. And then, like I said, I was then pulled into a major incident to help out with that, and that kind of bridged me over to security architecture, and then security awareness. In 2011, I started doing security awareness. Having all of that background knowledge really helped, but being able to take a security message that could be very technical and putting it into a business concept that end users could understand, and understanding that security awareness is more than just a compliance checkbox. It's marketing to your end user, making it in languages that they can understand, and concepts. So that's really kind of how I got started into security awareness, and that's kind of where I've been for the last few years. And then because I've used Cofense PhishMe products since 2011, really kind of grown to know and become more expertise in phishing training and actual real phishing itself.
So you were actually a user before you came to work for Cofense?
Yeah.
Oh,
Yep,
cool.
I've only been here for almost a year now. So yeah, I was a customer, and kind of my role that I have here is being able to help our customers with their programs and be that voice of the customer, and then also internally give our teams that customer perspective, as we enhance and build out our products to, how does this help the customer, and where's the pain points that the customer might gain from this,
Gotcha.
from our solutions.
Yeah, we're talking with Tonia Dudley at Cofense, and Tonia, I know we talked a little bit about some of the reports you have on your blog, the phishing defense report from 2018, and I know Don was asking about the other reports as well, the predictions for 2019. So is that what you were saying is the credential phishing? Is that one of the big things you see moving forward? Is there anything else that we should be looking out for as we continue on 2019 here?
Yeah, I mean, credential phish is the biggest thing. We're starting to see a little bit of ransomware pick up a little bit more again. Now that the crypto, we saw ransomware kind of spike, and then it kind of dropped when cryptocurrency took off, right? And then now crypto is kind of leveling off, maybe not as lucrative. And so we're starting to see ransomware pick up a little bit again.
If people want to find out a little bit more about what you guys have going on or connect with you, what are the best ways to do that?
Just our website, cofense.com. We have all of our solutions on there. We have, in addition to the products that I mentioned, we have our own threat intelligence that we provide. We also feed that back into our solutions. So we have our own research team that finds phishing threats and hands that off to our intelligence team, where they actually human verify it and give those IOCs into feeds that organizations can purchase and feed into their systems, that we also feed back into our own solutions. So we'll feed it into triage as rules that could hit if users report a phishing email. We also take some of that content and feed it into our simulations so that our operators can then simulate a real phishing message. So it's not just something that's made up, it's an actual real phishing message that aligns to what's the current threat.
Sounds good. All right. Well, thank you so much for taking the time to speak with us today. And I know I learned a little bit in terms of all the ways that I've probably been phished in the last few days. So I've got some work to do after this.
Sure.
But thank you so much for taking the time. And hopefully maybe we can connect back near the end of the year and talk about some of the kind of recapping what
Sure.
were your predictions right there in 2019 and what's moving forward. Yeah.
Right. Yeah. Thank you.
All right. Thanks so much. And thank you all for watching. But stay tuned. We've got more Technado coming up right after this. Welcome back to Technado. And Don, I know we talked about, we'd kind of done that internal phishing testing before. Is that the service we used? Do you know? Did you set that up or?
No, Tim set it up. It was
Okay.
it was a different service.
Okay.
But there's a number of them that are out there. They all have a great product. Everybody should be doing phish testing in or phishing simulation, as she called that's a better term, inside of your environment, because it is a great way to find out which of your employees are educated and which ones aren't. Anybody who clicks on the link, you can identify them and then go and make them attend training. But they go that step further and actually provide platforms to address the phishing and actually filter real stuff coming in. So pretty cool stuff.
So outside of the RSA conference last week, there was a woman in stilts with a whole yellow rain suit on, looked like the fisherman.
Morton's fish.
Yeah, the
Gordon's.
the Gordon's guy.
They're giving out fish sticks.
No, she had a fishing pole with a fish on it.
Oh.
And every time you'd walk by, she'd say, "Oh, great, you want it? You want it?" And no one would interact with this woman. But I was really curious to see, if you took the fish, then if she would yell at you for falling for a phishing scam. But
She was on stilts. You probably could have yanked her, like...
it seemed dangerous. It seemed, she was outside and it rained. It rained a lot, and so
That's the raincoat.
Well, she had the raincoat on even when it wasn't raining. I think it was part of the get up to hide the stilts. But yeah, I really don't know how that ended. So
And
it's a
you should
terrible
have lined
story.
up an interview.
I should have lined up.
That was an opportunity, Peter.
Yeah.
Next time.
Wasted.
Yeah.
Next time. Well, I did watch the podcast from last week that I missed because I was out of town, and I know that my job is safe after hearing Don try to do the close. And yeah, find us we're on the internet, and email us somewhere, and
don't know all that
just
stuff.
end the show. But we do want to let you know about a couple of things from IT Pro TV. First of all, I've got some webinars coming up, and actually one that we just did today on the Undead of IT, supporting legacy systems with Adam Gordon. That's going to be posted very shortly over at itpro.tv/webinars, so you can still go and watch it, even though if you missed it today. The next couple coming up, we've got landing your dream IT job using LinkedIn.
Nice.
Wes Bryan's going to be doing that, and then Microsoft certification test prep. There's a lot of new things with the role-based certifications that Microsoft's doing, and we have a couple of our Microsoft experts, Mike Roderick and Cherokee Boos, to walk you through all that. So head over to itpro.tv/webinars. You can register for the upcoming ones, and also go back and look at the past ones as well, and see what you missed. Also want to let you know about an offer from IT Pro TV. Head over to go.itpro.tv/Technado. We've got a 30% off coupon code for you off of our already low prices that we actually just dropped. So it is actually a fantastic deal, and the best deal you're ever going to get on IT Pro TV. So head over there, and if you have a business and want to learn more for your team, you can also request a team demo at go.itpro.tv/Technado. Well, thank you, Ronnie, for jumping in and joining us today.
Pleasure.
And, thank you, Don, for making sure that my job was safe to come back to with your performance last week. And thank you all for watching, and we will see you next week right here on Technado.
Are you enjoying Technado? Then be sure to check out our other podcast, Ask Me Anything, where our subject matter experts answer your questions. Here's the latest episode, and here's the full playlist. And as always, be sure to subscribe to IT Pro TV's channel.
IT Pro TV.